Hello, my name's Areiel Wolanow. I'm the CTO of Blok Bioscience, a group of thought leaders in the technology, medical, and supply chain spaces that got together to address what is likely to be the defining challenge of the next year or two, which is managing the COVID-19 pandemic and how to get people safely back to work to put an end to the economic devastation in a way that doesn't result in more loss of life or putting people at risk, but also in a way that protects people's civil liberties and right to privacy. When we realize that medicine, technology, supply chain expertise, none of these alone were enough to combat coronavirus. It needed a solution that relied on the best capabilities from all three fields. So we came together to develop that solution. What's in that solution? That solution includes a testing protocol that can adapt rapidly to the rapidly changing medical understanding of the best way to identify and track coronavirus. It includes supply chain expertise to get whatever those best tests are sourced. This is a non-trivial problem. Much of the world's logistics systems, which we are all very used to being able to order something online and getting it delivered the next day, that is broken down. So getting the right tests to the places where they're needed requires the best supply chain expertise. And then a technology platform that can collect the data and provide it in a way that allows decision makers, corporate, government, academic, to do their jobs as best as possible without compromising people's privacy or civil liberties, and without enabling or giving governments around the world a general surveillance capability to discover who's talked to whom. What makes putting together a COVID-19 management solution hard is how rapidly things are changing and how little time the scientific community is being given to find answers. What blockchain does is allow multiple people to share a single version of the truth. What's great about blockchain in this context is that technical thought leaders have been using blockchain to address some of the most critical issues around managing COVID-19. To give an example, supply chain. People have been working for the last 2 or 3 years using blockchain to supply rock-solid provenance. Well, that's critical because if we get a box of test kits that doesn't work, we need to identify where those test kits are, where they came from, to make sure that we're not making critical, life-altering decisions based on kits that don't work. Blockchain actually does provide a significant accelerator for two reasons. One is that the problem of how to share data between different people to eliminate the amount of both human and technology work required to synchronize, to message, to queue, to do all of these things, blockchain people have been working on solving. So those solutions are available to use. Could we do this with technology that was in full existence and working before blockchain? Of course we could. But we already have the design patterns and the working solutions because blockchain people have been working on them. So it's a significant time to market accelerator to use those solutions. The second reason that blockchain accelerates is not about the functionality of sharing data between multiple parties, but about the regulatory compliance that you need to demonstrate to be allowed to share. It's very easy for one university, in Europe to send a data file to another university in Asia. But just sending that data file via email, for instance, might violate privacy regulations. It might violate data residency rules. It might violate encryption rules. A blockchain solution that synchronizes that data across nodes has already been designed to be fully compliant with all of those regulations. Because T-Systems, amongst others, have spent millions of dollars and invest some of their best expertise in solving that problem, we now have that capability, those design patterns, those working solutions to leverage in harnessing against the fight. It's all very well and good for a government to say, this is what we need to do to get people back to work. What we're trying to do is to put in place a framework for designing and deploying protocols such that companies are able to respond to those protocols, to those government guidances as quickly as they are issued. An individual downloads our Immunity Passport application and registers. The registration involves several things, mostly taking pictures with your phone's camera. You start by taking a selfie with your phone's camera. You have to take the selfie with the app. You cannot use a photo that already exists on your phone. This prevents you from just uploading someone else's picture. Along with the selfie, you take a picture of your ID, a state-recognized or government-recognized ID. And if you're doing in this conjunction with your employer, you take a photo of your proof of employment or proof of contractor status. So these things are on your phone. They're not anywhere else. There is no database with which to share these items. Those items never leave your phone. Having done that, you then go and get your identity attested. So how do you do that? You meet in person with a human being who has been delegated by your government, by your employer, to be the attesting party. That agent looks at your selfie, the picture of your ID, your actual ID, and yourself, because you're meeting this person in person. And the attester says, all four of these things are the same person. Every further interaction you have on the platform is completely anonymous. And what's key to understand, through all of this attestation, we've never recorded your name. We don't need it. So you are completely anonymous. When you go to get tested, when you go to a lab, when you show your passport to say, yes, I am clear to return to work, yes, I am clear to get on the train or the plane, nobody needs to see anything identifying about you. You are completely anonymous. That attestation, that anonymous handshake, allows the government to have all of the data it needs, all with your consent, without knowing anything identifying about you. When a government has to issue reliable guidance, it can send out that guidance, and the phone itself will determine the piece of the guidance that's relevant to your status. So the government does not need to keep a database of who is IgG positive, who is IgM negative. It can send out the guidance, and the phone will make sure that you get the guidance that is relevant to you, which is a fantastic tool because now people can have reliable guidance. Right now, most people are getting their guidance where? From social media, from tabloid press. These are not very reliable places to get guidance. This provides a communication conduit without the need to create a database. Each person with an immunity passport in their possession has a reliable record of their antibody status, their symptoms, their lack of symptoms. Government will change the rules about who can go to work based on the best medical understanding of the time. The protocol changes. We don't have to go retrofit or re-engineer everything. All of that evidence is already in each individual's possession. One of the things worth exploring is how the need to adapt so quickly may impact the pace of change and the pace of adoption of enabling technologies. A lot of the move towards mobile working was already underway. This has accelerated that move and overcome resistance in a way that none of us would have imagined was possible. The other thing it will do is create a set of capabilities that will cause people to think beyond the problem we're trying to solve and think about other ways to use the same capabilities to solve other problems. This is not a new phenomenon, it's a very old one. What's changing is the pace. The capabilities we create now, it will be a very, very short period of time before today's innovators find other ways to make use of them. The internet was originally invented by defense specialists who wanted a secure way to communicate from headquarters to battlefield, and by academics who wanted a more efficient way of sharing research. If you look at the percentage of the world living in extreme poverty between the advent of the internet and 30 years later, it has gone down by 70%. There is no period in history that has had that level of change. The capabilities that we are developing now to manage COVID, in my mind, have that same world-changing potential. A lot of the design thinking that we're using and developing in this solution was based on the collaboration that I had and my company had with T-Systems. Blok Bioscience itself is an amalgam of medical, supply chain, and technology experts. I'm not sure it would have occurred to us to come together as a company had it not been in response to this crisis. But the bonds that we formed and the ways we are learning from each other, the impact of that will last far beyond the solution of this one crisis.